party down, location mysterious. Wanna rock this con like my man James Tiberius. Jesse and Marina, they're mad clever like the Negus. Gonna guide you through the scenes, beam from London to Las Vegas. Where to go, how to dress, when to sleep, who to see. Celebs not to miss, Sardis Wong and SMG. Star Trek into awesome, build some memories that last. Set the proper course, the Shore Leave Podcast. Boom.
Welcome to the 91st episode of Shore Leave, your Star Trek Convention Community Podcast. I'm Marina Kravchuk, one of your co-hosts, and with me is, as always, the amazing Jesse Akando. Jesse, how are you?
Hello, I am great. Thank you. I am excited to talk about this, or not talk much, but just relive STLV through you guys. So I'm super excited. I know I missed out on a lot, and just want to say to everybody who sent me notes because they missed me, like it meant a lot, and my piggy bank for STLV has reappeared. So, so we'll do that next year.
Yes,
so thank you so much.
You were sorely missed, Jesse, because you are very much a fixture of both STLV and the cruise, and this year it was just lacking because you were not there.
Yeah.
So this episode is basically a follow-up to STLV, and we decided to have the admins of the Star Trek Experiences group, Convention Experiences group on Facebook. So with us is Ron and Heather. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Hey. So let me Heather, can you just reintroduce us to yourself, even though we just chatted with you a month ago?
Oh gosh, what am I doing now? What am I doing at this point in my Trek life? So my name is Heather Ray Barker, and I just concluded Mission Log Live: Strange New Worlds. Sad to see season 2 end, since who knows how long we'll be waiting for season 3. But that was a lot of fun, and now I am debuting a new podcast, Federation of Changemakers, a Trektivism podcast, coming out next month, hopefully on schedule. And we're going to be talking to people doing the real work to help change the world and get us closer to Roddenberry's vision. So I'm doing all that stuff, and then keeping an eye on the group with all of you.
Perfect. Hey, thanks. Ron, we missed you last time, so this whole podcast is just you talking, if you're okay with that.
I don't think the four of us can ever be at one convention together. There's always one that has to be sitting it out. So you were missed, but yeah, it was so much fun. Let's see, I'm also hosting the Con Pod, which is kind of a mirror podcast to yours, which will probably be on hiatus for a little while. But yeah, what a crazy month it's been since Vegas. Marina and I were talking beforehand, and it's just the time absolutely flies. The time at the convention flies, the time after it flies. The only time that doesn't fly is waiting for the next convention.
It's amazing. It's like that internet meme, the one where you have Picard looking all dignified, it's the time before the convention, and then you have this kind of a blur in the middle, and then the crying Picard at the end.
Oh,
and
yes.
it's the same experience every year.
It really is.
All righty, so let's get started. Marina, let's start with you, kind of the master of ceremonies usually. So where do we start? Let's
just sort of like I'm curious, like a first blush, like this was a convention that felt a lot like a restart, actually, because we did have 2021, which was a very interesting experience with the pandemic requirements in place and things that had to be done differently just by virtue of having those restrictions. And then 2022 was an odd one out again because we were at a different location. Now we're back in Rio. We back to having all this. It's still a weird one, and we'll touch upon that. But nevertheless, it feels like finally the convention kind of like going almost full speed, so to speak. So first blush, your reaction, did the convention hit all the spots for you? Was that something that well, yes, that's exactly what I expected, or kind of we're still getting there. So first blush, impression of your week in Vegas. And let's start with Heather.
Oh goodness. It felt really great to be back home. As I think it's been said on other podcasts all around the podcast verse, that it's, I'll refrain from profanity, but it's our dump. and we love it. Like it's a dump, but it's our dump kind of thing. Rio hadn't really changed a whole lot. I know there was a lot of panic in the beginning about Starbucks not being open. And even though I called and talked to the Rio and they said that the Starbucks at Ipanema was open, it was not. So we had a longer wait for coffee, you know, that wasn't that bad. I think overall it felt pretty similar. There were small things we were missing, like the better screens in the main hall. Is the main hall the Leonard Nimoy hall now?
That's right. Yes.
Or okay. I did not get a program this year, so I don't remember what things are called, but we did not have the super fancy screens that we used to have. So sitting way back, it was a little different, but not terrible. My room was fine. It was the same old room that I was used to. And the convention itself, pretty typical. I got to see like 1.5 panels. Yeah, I mean, overall it was great. It was great to be back. It was great to see everybody. That's the most important part. And to be in a space that was familiar and didn't feel cramped. I felt like Bally's or Horseshoe, whatever it is now, I felt like it was so cramped last year. So it was nice to have all that space. My toes have not recovered. I think I have nerve damage in one of my toes from walking in high heels the whole week, which I know I should not have done, but I did not prepare wisely. I was very dumb in that regard, but you know, overall it was great. It was just missing Jesse.
Yeah. Aw. But did you look good, Heather? That's all that matters.
I'd like to think that I did. I'd like to think that I did. In fact, I left my boots, those con boots I've had since 2016. I bought them for the Enterprise Augment cosplay. And I ran them into the ground. The heel was coming off. They were falling apart. So I left them in Vegas and like sang a sad song and then got back and found them online. And so I ordered a new pair. So the boots will be back, but also there will be flats and other shoes and not boots the whole week. And always remember to break in your other shoes before you go to STLV so that they don't cut your feet up, so that you're not stuck in high heel boots the whole week.
That's a great tip.
You know, chime in too and say Heather looked fabulous. I don't think I saw you once in the vendor's room or the main theater, but we must have passed each other 30 times in the Ipanema hallway, and every time she was dressed differently and everything looked fantastic. So yes, you looked fabulous.
Thank you. Special shout out to Pop Galaxy, that's what they're called these days. Pop Galaxy Clothing, who furnished most of my clothing over the years. I bought it all myself, not a paid advertisement. I love their stuff, and this year it gave way for the Hi Barbie event with the pink tops and the purple tops that a lot of people were wearing, and that was a lot of fun. So thank you, Ron.
Yeah, the big thing that the thing that I wanted to ask you guys on here was I remember sending Marina a message and I'm like, what is that thing that's the centerpiece this year? What were people's responses to that?
So just to so the centerpiece itself, from what I was told, was actually created by a fan who also happens to be an artist. And I do not know why it was rather ingloriously removed at the end, because there was probably no way to disassemble it, and that's why they had to quite literally destroy it in order to remove it for the next event coming after us. But as they were assembling it, it kind of looked Borg-ish, and people were like, well, is it a Borg pyramid? And seeing how things have to be a certain way, it's being disguised as a pyramid instead of a cube. Who knows? But it obviously has STLV on it and everything. Anyway, I took some pictures to share because it just looked rather unusual. And then once the convention started, there were actually 2 plaques added to right next to this element, this centerpiece. And this is actually the remnant of the whole Thrall Empire thing that we've witnessed over the last couple of years. And actually the plaque had the picture the folks who played the parts of like basically astronauts that went on to meet the Thrall Empire and unfortunately never made it back. So there's a picture of our friend Eric from USS Rio right there because he took part in it. And the whole thing was just a, delightful reminder of this unusual thing that Creation had put together to kind of explain the decorations and centerpieces and everything else that they had because it could not be tracked anymore. But I think everybody was just, it was a mix of sort of, well, it looks fun enough, so some excitement, and then people were just having fun with it because it is probably the most unusual centerpiece that we've had so far. So yeah, I didn't realize it was this thing until I actually read what the plaques said, and yeah, it's funny. I find it funny.
I did appreciate that they had stuff that said STLV on it.
Yeah.
And I have no qualms about it. STLV really can stand for anything. It's not beholden because we call it Star Trek Las Vegas. It's not violating anything because of that. So
Yeah, well,
I thought it was really kind of sweet.
yeah,
It was there.
yeah,
So
it is. But and people are saying like, well, everybody knows what STLV is, and seeing, I would actually call this entire convention experience this year is a convention of euphemisms because of this
Yeah,
WGA and SAG-AFTRA strike, a lot of things would be like, yeah, that 90s show, like, and you substitute like words and things, and Garrett was signing autographs at his table with, instead of putting red alert, he would put puce warning, holding things with different words. So in this way, it's like, yeah, STLV, that could be anything, it's that thing. Well, you know what it is.
yeah, it was after however many years that we've been calling it that. It was nice to see it like quasi not official, but just
Well,
there.
Now that we know that TOS stands for those old scientists,
Right,
really,
right.
STLV can be anything.
Right. They also had some merchandise, which I'll talk about later because I wanted to hear what Ron had to
Yes.
say, like Ron's first impression of the year.
Yeah, it was it felt good to get back to normal. I the last STLV I went to was in 2021, right after the pandemic. And to a point, I think that one we were spoiled because the crowds were so light that year.
Yeah.
This year, getting there, I was so overwhelmed that first day with just the amount of people. It was great. And one of my missions this year was to get autographs from the TNG cast. And the lines for these guys were just incredible. I think I waited an hour and a half in line for Michael Dorn, and well worth it. It was good to see them getting the love. But no, it definitely felt like we were back to normal. Saw a lot of faces that hadn't seen in a couple years. That centerpiece, I will say, it filled the area really well. I think they've done a good job of kind of maintaining that centerpiece. I think the last at Bally's, I think it was the same as the 2021 convention. So it was nice to see a change, but no, it was just like we said before, it felt like coming home. It was great.
All right, I actually just pulled up the little plaque that was sort of like explaining what this item was. So like in case somebody wants to refer to it by something other than quasi Borg pyramid, it is actually it's a Thrall invasionary monitoring satellite captured from Earth orbit. So yeah, so it was a satellite that said for some reasons unknown said STLV on it. So
I think the question is, will we see the Thrall again?
Yeah.
Oh, who knows?
Is it the end of the Thrall? Do we bring back the Thrall? And I know
catch on, I guess is my question.
That what?
Did it ever catch on?
It was made fun of. I mean, it's the Starship is landing of STLV. So I don't know if people knew about that StarTrek.com merchandise thing where like every week or so it was just the Enterprise is landing, the Voyager is like it was the dumbest thing.
You wish. Unfortunately, they kept it only to 3 ships, I think, out of which only 1 could actually realistically land. Everything else was just, trolling.
Right. So it made no sense.
Yeah. But no, it's one of those things where I can totally understand the logic of it, because you have this beautifully made Borg regeneration chambers that you can no longer have looking like that or calling them Borg regeneration chambers. What do you do with them? So they become Thrall transportation devices, and you paint them silver, and there you have it. People still have a nifty thing to take pictures in, and then again, everybody knows what it is. So it's very much a wink wink nudge nudge type of situation.
But they were not there this year, or was it okay?
Surprise.
They had some photo op things, but there was no Borg regeneration stations. There was no energized pad. God, I feel dumb. I can't think of the
transporter pad. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Energized pad. Lord.
They had there was this digital photo setup, which looks like to be pretty popular. So a gentleman would take a photo of you in front of a background and then put some kind of a computer effect on it, and then you look Borg, or you look like you're being disintegrated with a phaser beam, all sorts of different little nifty looking things. And I mean, every time I passed by, there was always a line of people standing there waiting for it. So that I guess that's a successful thing. That's not the first time they were doing this, so I guess we're gonna probably see it next year as well.
I do wonder what Creation considers a success, because this was the first year we had that art room. And every time I walked by the art room, there were people in the art room. It wasn't overwhelmed, which is good, because I think the point was that it was supposed to be kind of not the quiet room, that was somewhere else, but a quieter place to come and do fun little things and escape the craziness of the convention. And I know people that did stuff, and none of it was free. You had to pay different prices for different things, but people were there. And so
it must have worked.
I'm curious what the success level is, whether or not they'll bring that kind of stuff back next year. They did have the balloons were free, and I think they had caricatures that were free.
Yes.
So some of the stuff that we used to see on the promenade, some of the stuff that was new that you paid for, and please bring back the photo booth sometime. That was there for a couple years, and that I really missed, because it was just a fun little thing to do.
But something I wanted to bring up, like now we're mentioning all these things that are primarily actually out there in the corridor, is the fact that, again, thank goodness that we were back in Rio, because the Rio actually has enough space to fit all of this, and you actually still have little spots here and there where, if you are feeling overwhelmed, you actually can step away from the bustle of a very substantial crowd this year and just kind of I don't know, sit down somewhere in the corner and just mind yourself. Or also you have just generally areas that by nature are kind of set up to be quieter than any of the theaters, and that's specifically, for example, they had an actual gallery space this year dedicated to Kavita's artwork, which I have to say I absolutely loved. I mean, I stopped by several times. I really love her artwork, and she's amazing.
Yes, here.
And just generally, it was obviously a quieter place, because people would come in and just stand there and contemplate the paintings, and some would and some of these were actually originals. I don't know if you've noticed, some of the paintings, those were actual paintings that the lithographs were made out of. The prints that she sells. And I'm sure that people were actually getting some of the artwork. I mean, those prints are amazing.
Oh, they were sold, most of her stuff was sold out. That is one thing where now Kavita is a licensed artist. She has a Star Trek license. The convention itself does not have the Star Trek license. She does. All of her stuff, the majority of it, seemed to sell out. I don't want to make it a statement I actually know for sure, but the day that I finally got to go, which is Sunday, I think, pretty much everything was saying sold out, and I don't know what the prices were, but I will say that I am very much in support of them doing this again, and I would love to see it open to fan artists, or I don't know how it all works, is the point. Since she is a licensed artist, she can sell her stuff, I guess. I don't know how much all of that matters with Creation not having the license. So I don't know,
Probably works like the vendors, I'm guessing.
But the thing is, speaking of the vendors, and I'm sure you have noticed it, we had a pretty full vendor room this year, and specifically quite a lot of the vendors going back to, it almost felt like going back to pre-2020. There were a lot of licensees. So it wasn't
Mhm.
like, you know, the 2021 where you come in and there's the away mission and fan sets and that's really it. No, this time around you go in and it's all our old favorites, but you also have Hero Within and you have well actually we had what 4 different clothing companies.
Yeah, Volante.
Volante was there, well Pop Galaxy was there, right? They had
Yep,
their own
Pop
booth.
Galaxy.
Um,
So Pop Galaxy, Volante, Hero Within.
Star Trek wines.
Yes.
It's curiously the cruise people did not have a booth this time around, but I don't
No,
know. That's
Cherry. So Cherry Tree,
Cherry
I
was
think
there.
is.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the away mission was there. I mean, I love stopping by his booth. It's always a lot of fun.
Who was the
I
what was the booth that had the Enterprise D and the Enterprise G models? Those great big,
Oh yes,
extremely
that
expensive.
was a big one. That's Factory
Yeah.
Entertainment.
Oh yes,
That's fact,
Factory. Yes.
and that was I was very excited to see that because they're usually big at larger shows. So you know we're talking like San Diego, New York Comic Con level, and this was their very first Las Vegas, and they
Yeah.
brought, as you could see, they brought everything, all the especially they brought some of the prototypes. You know, you could see what the if anybody ever purchased the like the TNG medical set or they're gonna have the tricorder, you know, with working lights and everything, so you could actually see all this in the displays. And then of course he has the ships, and I think they even had some of the exclusives that they had just recently premiered in San Diego. So this was you know, you walk in, it was a very substantial vendor room. There was a lot of stuff to explore, and I mean of course we had the usual, you know, the Tribble guy was there, folks who sell t-shirts and old posters and just generally the
Mickey.
Mickey was there always, you know, with all the
Yeah.
amazing crocheted
I
stuff.
got
Oh
to shout out to Mickey. Always got to shout out to Mickey.
yeah,
She's like she
Hey,
hand makes all that stuff. So
yeah.
that's
she looked
and
great
there
in her
were
Barbie.
then Mickey had like the most amazing outfits all week long, like the bat'leth through her head,
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
the Borg 420 of 4 of 20 Borg. Like I love she's so creative. I loved everything that she did.
Yeah.
And there were some other handmaids. I honestly, I never felt like I really saw every single booth. Like I did not get to spend time looking at every single one because it was so big and just, you know, every time you go in the vendor's room, you run into somebody and you start talking and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go look at things and then nope.
Yeah.
Um,
I just kept circling back there because every time I would, same thing, I would find
Yep.
something that I'm like, oh, I completely missed this. Now I have to take a look at this.
mhm.
Now to finish up what I was saying about Factory Entertainment, the additional very fun thing that was happening is that on the side of their booth they had a table where the production staff from Picard season 3 kind of had their little
Yeah.
nest, so to speak. And so that Dave Blass was there, Liz Klaskowski was there, and Todd Marks was there, and they were signing and talking and, you know, doing all sorts of things during the weekend. Like literally every time I would stop by, there's going to be at least one of them, sometimes 2 or 3 of them, and like a nice little crowd of fans, and they were just giving themselves to the crowd completely. It was
Yeah.
just an amazing experience. Probably one of the highlights. I mean, I stopped by to get that beautiful print of the Enterprise bridge photo, you know, that really long one. Dave Blass went into I would imagine pretty amazing trouble to get all the production people who were present at the convention. So it's the 3 of them plus the Akutas plus Doug, and I'm forgetting there was one other gentleman. It skips my mind, unfortunately. So it's seven or 8 people, and he got them all to sit down somewhere quietly during the convention and sign several hundred of those prints. And yeah, and they were offering you could just get it right there for if memory serves right, for about $50. So you get, you know, 7-8 signatures on this gorgeous print of the Resurrected Enterprise D bridge. That was just mind blowing.
That
Like I
print
said,
alone
that's
would have been worth
it's
fifty
probably one of
dollars.
the highlights for me. Just having this kind of access to
Mhm.
the folk who did this, and they had multiple panels throughout the weekend. So that was actually, I think, one of the um themes that kind of really stuck through the weekend. It was the whole production side of Enterprise D, because they like I said, they did at least 2 panels about talking just about the bridge, and then of course
Yeah.
you have everything else with the director's panel and, you know, the actors, but of course the actors could only speak about specific things. They couldn't talk about the actual production.
Yeah.
Did
I
they
didn't get
hold
to
to that pretty much?
What was that?
Did they hold to that pretty much? Like, did anybody break,
Yeah, there was several mostly accidental, but for the most
yeah,
part,
yeah.
it was a unusual experience in the sense of having actually really full panels, good Q&As with I think it kind of pushed a lot of the attendees to actually putting good thought into what am I going to ask when I'm stepping up to that microphone. There were excellent questions, and kudos to the folks who hosted. So specifically shout out to Ian Spelling, who came up with this amazing thing of in case there's not enough folks coming up to microphones, which actually wasn't the case. Like I don't think I've seen a single panel that I attended where, oh, we don't have any more questions, what do we should we talk about? That never happened. He had older photos from events or some of the productions or anything of the actors, like a first picture of somebody meeting somebody, like the one of my favorite ones, because I've seen this photo before and it's a delightful story. There's a photo of 16-year-old Brent Spiner meeting Judy Garland.
Oh,
And there you go. And then you have like a 10-minute conversation about this experience. Has nothing to do with any productions. It was just his experience. So we actually got to kind of learn more about the actors, not specifically about them through their characters or through their acting work, and they also got to answer questions that they probably have never been asked before, because conventions do tend to be specific to whatever thing du jour, whatever the convention is about, and in our case is Star Trek, obviously. So I have to say, this was I my heart does go out to the folks who did want to, I want to speak about Dr. Crusher, and unfortunately Kate McFadden couldn't, but she gave her all. She was present and doing a whole lot of other things. So and answering this, like I said, Q&A sessions were quite interesting in that regard. And those folks who were new, and I have to say, this convention, we had a surprising number of new attendees. Stick with it. Things will change. Next year in the convention, yes, you will get to meet your favorite character and talk about the favorite episodes and scenes and funny things that happen behind the scenes and everything. It will happen, but you kind of have a preview of what you will be kind of into several years down the line when you really want to know more about the actors themselves and the production staff and the writers and the producers, etc.
I feel like overall, like again, I did not get to watch many of the panels. I saw more panels in the secondary theater. I saw some of Chase Masterson's panel, which, oh gosh, had Mary Chieffo, Anthony Rapp, and then also Anson Mount, Ethan Peck, and Chris, who I can't think of his last name right now, and I feel bad. He was on the Trectivism panel with us last year. I caught the end of it.
Chris Coker.
Yes, Chris Coker. Thank you so much. Sorry, Chris. I caught the end of it, like when they were bringing out Ethan and Anson, and it was just a really heartfelt, beautiful, and moving panel. And Ethan talked about fear and like not letting fear stop you, which was just something that resonated with me. It was I love Chase's panels, always happy to show up for them. And then Yesenia, Chad, and Liana's panel that was about not convention stuff, but
the virtual communities.
Yes, virtual communities.
Which is yeah, something that I was like, how come we haven't spoken about this before? Because it's so near and dear to literally
right.
Most of the people who are part of the convention circuit constantly, and we've had to go through these 2.5 years of having nothing,
right,
except for all the virtual things, which thank goodness that we still do.
Yeah, I was so happy to see them get stage time, and I went on right after them, so I was able to catch the majority of it. But like the main panels, I saw the engineers, or not engineers. No, maybe it was the one with it was Anthony LeVar, Garrett.
Yeah, the engineers, scientists and
Yes.
engineers, yes.
Yes. I liked that one, and then I saw part of Jerry, Michelle, and Ed Spalier's
which was
And
hilarious.
that was great. And I remember, and it might have been Ian, it might have been someone else asking, like, what are everyone's favorite board games? And I just thought that was, I don't really play board games myself, but it was still fun. Like, it's a fun question. It's not something I've heard. And I really enjoyed those questions versus a question that I've heard 10,000 times already. And I'm sorry that probably comes off elitist to many people. But yeah, overall, I felt that the panels went very well despite the restrictions that we had. And I, like you just said, Marina, next year we hopefully we better be back to normal. If not, your fans are going to be
Yeah.
out there, like we're all flying to, like we're out on the streets.
But generally speaking, like I have high hopes for next year because a lot of things should be kind of, well, again, hopefully we will not have the strike situation happening. And as many might know, the hotel right now, Rio, is kind of in transition. In October of this year, it's supposed to get new management team coming in that planning to do some major renovations, starting with the Ipanema Tower. So, that's kind of exciting because hopefully that will mean that the hotel will kind of restart its normal operations, because this year it felt very bare, like a lot of shops were closed, a lot of restaurants were not operating at normal hours or were running low on things, like that. I think one of my acquaintances wanted to get I don't know, like a Coke or something at Smashburger, and they said, we're very sorry, we ran out of CO2. So this kind of like silly things. So so we'll see, like things will be back, and again, things continue evolving. That's when I'm kind of glad that things are not stagnating, things are changing every year, and
I'm just glad we'll be back.
Yeah.
Like I don't want a redo of Bally's type experience. I would much rather
vertical
be
separation
back home.
just did not work. That was like the thing that I think destroyed the sort of like the cohesiveness when we have like this crowd just churning and circulating in this one big area. So Ron, did you have any like standouts in terms of panels for you? I don't know if you did any panels or you just spent all the time with the autographing.
I every time I go to one of these conventions, I'm going to spend all the time in the theater, and then I spend like 10 minutes in the theater. I will say the excuse me, the only big panel that I saw in the main theater was the Orville reunion.
Oh yes,
which
yes, I saw that
called
too.
That, but that was fantastic. They were so much fun, and I like the Orville. I was one of those when they announced the Orville cast was coming. I wasn't terribly excited, but oh boy, that changed after that panel. I'm a big Orville junkie now, and I think, Marina, you mentioned that there was a lot of euphemism, and that was one question that stuck out. Was somebody asked the gentleman that plays Isaac, theoretically, let's say you're playing a character in heavy makeup, how would you go about acting and portraying this character? And he started answering. I forget the gentleman that plays the navigator, but Isaac was like halfway through his answer before the navigator's like, I see what's going on here. And it was just really funny because they were able to answer questions while working around that. But yeah, just great energy all around. The production folks, I always kind of prefer those over the actors talking about the show. So hearing the Picard people, hearing what went into redesigning that bridge was phenomenal. And honestly, getting the update on To the Journey was really fascinating. I haven't been glued to that. Really nothing other than they're in their post-production, and it sounds like everything's coming together. They were hoping for this spring for it to be released. But just
so
anytime you can sit.
Yeah, they basically confirmed the information that was sort of released at the cruise. And so they're neck deep into post-production really, and fingers crossed that everything, like nothing else, throws any kind of wrench, because I'm really excited. It sounds like Joe's just going through, I don't know how many hundreds of hours of footage that they got between interviewing the fans and then interviewing literally I don't know how many actors or behind the scenes people they managed to get. It sounds like a lot over the period of 3 years. So it's I can't wait to see the final result.
And they kind of teased their next project too, which is exciting. It sounds like it might be something to do with Enterprise. And if that's the case, that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Finally, Enterprise gets some love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I mean, I'm still keeping fingers crossed that we're gonna have Scott attending the conventions again because, based on the Tragix telethon that we had in February, he's more than willing to be, to be there for track and to be talking track and engaging with the fans. And I'm assuming it's probably the schedule that never works out, that he's just not doing conventions. But
Yeah.
at some point, he's got to get back because, I mean, we already missed Enterprise's 20th anniversary. I mean, the usual suspects are always there, John
Yeah.
and Dominic and everybody. But, it's kind of nice to at least get the bulk of them, even though, I mean, Jolene doesn't look like he's going to be coming back anytime soon. Yeah, we'll see what that's gonna happen. I wanted to bring up something else in terms of like the as far as highlights are concerned. This was very noticeable and I have to say incredibly heartening to see, and that's the fact that one thing that was very much present was Prodigy.
Yes.
We had both Hageman brothers and we had Aaron Waltke, who very similar to the production staff from Picard, they were everywhere. I mean, they did several panels. They just literally walked around. You could bump into them and just talk to them, take photos. They would sign things. It was this fantastic, the Prodigy was very much like, yes, everybody is there. Everybody's rooting for the show,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really, really wonderful to see. And then of course, Bonnie had her shows in the on the Roddenberry stage. So it was
Yep.
very much sort of like, out of all things, well, not to mention also because animateds fall under different union, that was
Yeah.
actually the one show that everybody could talk about, mentioning the characters and everything else. So those panels were full discussions, not euphemisms.
Yeah.
That was really wonderful to experience.
Yeah, I feel dumb now that I didn't mention that immediately when we were talking about panels because yes, like Prodigy panel I showed up for. I've told the story already, but I it was really important to me that we try to just show up to show them that we love them and we love
Yeah.
the show. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna bring my Murph shirt. I'm gonna make a sign, like I'm gonna do something and show up. And then one night I'm like laying in bed and remember that I have this dress that's been in my closet for 3 years that looks like Murph. And so I decided to do Murph cosplay because they had announced that they were going to do a little cosplay contest. And I was like, okay, well, that's fun. And I was like, I'm just going to do it to show up and show my support. Um, everyone
That
that
sounds
works
like
on
a
the
lot of fun.
show, what?
I said, that sounds like a lot of fun. I would love to see that.
I will send you a picture. It was all I did was like I had the dress, I had a purple bodysuit that I wore under it, and then I went and found a wig. Um, and I had like purple glasses. Did I think I wore the purple glasses. I don't know. I just thought, okay, I was calling myself Murph Barbie because I wasn't quite like I didn't look like a gelatinous glob, but that was the overall gist of it.
It was
And
perfect. And the things that when I ran into you in the corridor, and I'm like, my God, she looks amazing. And it didn't compute in my head that you actually, because I'm like, it's a lot of purple. It didn't
right?
somehow didn't click until after the fact when I saw that you actually placed in the cosplay after the big Prodigy panel, the main stage. I'm like, my God. Well, first of all, I'm an idiot, and second of all, it's really because that's the actually really the easiest way to cosplay it if you can wear a dress because it kind of like it approximates the shape.
It was just the easiest thing. And I did take my little Murph toy because let's face it, a lot of Star Trek fans didn't watch Prodigy. And so a lot of people didn't
Yeah.
know like it, yeah, it's you don't make the connection. And part of like that dress is very loud and sci-fi looking, and I just never felt like wearing it anywhere else. So I felt like it waited for this moment. And I did not expect anything. I was just like, okay, I'm here. I popped up. The person who won first place dressed up as Doll. They had the makeup on. They were amazing. And I am friends with them on Facebook. And Marina, do you know their name? I'm trying to think of,
No. I
shoot.
know, I followed the second place winner, Neve, that she was doing the Enterprisian.
Yeah, Giraffe. That's
Yes,
Giraffe.
yeah,
So
the spotted giraffe, yeah.
yes, Giraffe is on Strange New podcast. Shoot, and now I feel so bad because I know that the person who did Dal is going by Jadzia on, let me see if I can pull up on Facebook just so
Yeah.
that we can give
Something
proper
I have to
credit.
I have to say that this whole thing with Merv, it's incredible how they managed to create this one character that literally everybody who's ever been exposed to Merv just completely fell in love and wants everything. You know, t-shirts and mugs and you name it and everything. I had some pins made that said, you know, save Prodigy on them.
Yep.
And that was the fastest thing. I technically speaking, these were done for Craft Swap, which I want to actually mention in a moment. And outside of Craft Swap, whatever extras I had, I was literally, that's it. That's the first time where everything that I brought was gone completely before the convention even ended. And that was the first thing I had. I had a hologram Janeway and the Murph, and people would see it and say, "I'll have the Murph, please." And that's it. You know, like I said, just gone in a matter of, you know, as
I
many
have one
hours.
right here. I will treasure it as much as I treasure the little plushy Murph. They were very generous with their prizes for the contest, and I don't want to give out Dow's the person who played Dow's name without their consent. I realize now, but everyone did a fantastic job. There was Rachel was there. With her hologram Janeway and her
Yeah.
Murph that everybody signed. Like everybody signed the back of Murph for her. So that was just I special thanks to everyone on the Prodigy team for being so accessible throughout the week, because I know so many people that got to talk to them. And we had big news with the plane flying the banner this week, which is not STLV related, but something
Yes.
that fans
It,
came together to do, which
I
was
am
amazing.
super pleased that to have participated in this because it seemed to be such a simple thing. And you know, again, we're not talking about crazy amount of money either. Michelle, you know, shout out to Michelle who took the lead on this, and she just said, "Why don't we do this?" And that's it. It took like a week,
She's
you
in the
know.
UK. She's
She's across,
international.
exactly. And I watched on Twitter as she was like literally going nuts because they gave her the information of when things are happening, how things are happening, and she's like, is anybody seeing anything? And apparently there were issues with some low clouds, so they
Yeah.
were like a couple hours late starting out. But then yeah, there's a video of the plane taking off, and then there's folks from Trek movie, a layaway team, Larry went there and
Mm-hmm.
Aaron was there. They all
Bonnie.
showed up. Yeah, Bonnie was there. They all there. They got there and they took pictures, and they, so you can see the stuff flying over the
And
Netflix
they waited
headquarters.
like 3 hours for that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
props to everybody who showed up to take those pictures, to do that for
But
everybody else.
it's like somebody said on Twitter, actually, he's like, it feels like we're part of history, but it kind of is, like we wanted this, the fans want this, and we made it happen. And it
Mm-hmm.
just it's wonderful, and hopefully people took notice. I mean, the news outlets certainly did, because I don't know if you saw it, we actually, our little thing with this got into the Hollywood Reporter. They did
Yep.
a small article about this, Star Trek Save the Prodigy takes to the skies, and it's incredibly exciting. And yeah, again, hopefully people that should take notice will take notice.
Here, here.
Was it also at the convention where they released, like not at the convention, but at the same time, the season 2 trailer, or was it just the
Yes.
announcement that the Doctor was
Yeah.
coming back?
Yeah, they did the 4 hour teaser. Sorry, 4 hour,
Yeah.
Jesus. I wish it was 4 hour. A 4 minute teaser with the announcement of EMH coming back. So yeah, like again, that was the one of the few groups of folks who actually could speak explicitly about Star Trek during the convention, and it
Yeah.
was really exciting. Oh, speaking of season 3 Picard, props to Terry Matalas. That's another thing. I mean, we're talking, this is where on the level of a showrunner, and he was everywhere during this convention.
Mhm.
Same deal, you could just bump into him in the
I
corridor.
never saw him once.
But he was like, you look at least the folks, the people taking pictures with him and doing whatever, and he was I mean, I hopefully it was good to have that much good vibes directed at him, because I don't know how he managed to do that, because they were shooting the seasons back to back. And
Yeah.
just recently on the Seventh Rule podcast, he kind of said, by the time they were halfway through season 3, everybody just wanted to die. They were
Mm,
also incredibly stressed out and tired for doing all this, and they did a magnificent job. So thank goodness, it's a good time to be a Star Trek fan.
yeah. I think no
s-
matter like what your opinion was on season 3 of Picard, I don't think anybody can deny that it was incredibly
yeah,
successful.
yes, absolutely.
That was
Um,
prevalent with the lines.
Something else I want to ask you about before we jump into fan organized stuff. So the remaining convention activities, the photo ops and autographs. Now, Ron already said that he was hunting for autographs. Did you do any autographs yourself, Heather? And what about photo ops? Both of you, did you do any photo ops?
So I did 2 photo ops and I did 1 autograph. And so the first photo op was Bruce Horak, and I was invited to that by my dear friend Heather. Um, and that was an amazing photo. He's like holding both of our hands. It's the sweetest thing ever. It's like one of my favorite photo ops now. He was so kind and generous. And then we went to pretty much right after that, wait in line to get his autograph. And again, like they were just kind of the one thing about these actors is that when they do photos and autos, they are nonstop. Like it's
Yeah.
back to back. They don't get the breaks that they need, in my opinion, from what I've heard. So we were in line for a while, and then they came out and they said, listen, he hasn't even had lunch. So they're sitting down to lunch now. It might be a while. And so we decided to go back the next day. And that worked in our favor because by then we had the photo op.
Yeah.
So Heather was able to have him sign the photo op. And that was again a really lovely experience. That was in the vendor's room. And then the other photo op I got that was gifted to me by my dear friend John Macy was with Gates. And so I invited my friend Susie to come along for that, and that went really quickly. Um, I was Murph. I'm Murph in the photo, and Susie is Agnes, or Girardi in the red dress from Picard. And it was kind of funny because I had the tiny Murph in my hand because I felt like, all right, I'm going to put Murph in my hand and kind of hold him out so that it's in the photo. So like Gates put her hand out too. All right, like let's go. I don't know,
It's
but it
awesome.
was great. She's just amazing. It's always delightful to share space with her in any manner. And then I did stop and talk to some people at their booths, and that's one of the things that I love about having. Like I'm torn because when we have the lines for people, it can be really overwhelming in the vendor's room. And I think 2016 is the one year that we had that secondary room, the
Yeah.
overspill.
But that was
So,
primarily because of the Mac thing. Remember, there was
right,
had
because
this
that was
Mac took up a
huge.
lot of space. Yeah.
So, and they did have like lines going out these doors and through the corridors and everything else. But it's just my only thing is that it gets really cramped and overwhelming when there are really big lines, which we had for the TNG folks and for the Strange New Worlds folks. Like they had crazy lines as well. But I love that like you're just chilling in the vendor's room. And if you see someone that like doesn't have a lot of people at their table, or Heather stopped to get Anthony Rapp's autograph and I was with her. So then I got to have a quick little chat with Anthony. And then I went over and said hi to Mary Chifo at some point. So it's just nice when you can just walk up and spend time with people. And I like that very much. But overall, very positive experiences, no complaints at all.
What about you, Ron?
I'm gonna say too, the lines, because I waited in quite a few of them. One thing they did this year, I haven't seen them do before, for the TNG folks, their lines were incredibly long, and they'd have to go to panels, photo ops, lunch, bathroom, whatever. Whenever they would leave, the attendant had a stack of sticky notes and was writing a number down so that you could come back when they would be there and get your same spot in line, which was very nice.
Nice.
And the lines for autographs, they're slow moving, but you meet some great people in those lines too. I think most of the people that I met at this convention that were Facebook friends and were all through the autograph lines, which was great. And then photo ops, I did a couple. The most notable one was Jerry Ryan. I've never seen a line for a photo op like this.
Yeah.
It snaked all the way from the photo op room past Jimmy's place all the way down the hallway down to where the art room was. and actually circled around to the back of the vendor's room. It was enormous, and they went through it. It didn't take maybe 10 minutes to do those photos. They all came out great, but that line was insane.
You know
She's a
what?
queen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it reminded me because I didn't have actually a photo op with her, but I walk outside and I don't know where I was coming from, and I see this what you're describing, this enormous snaking thing going all through the corridor, and I'm like, you know what, this looks like a Jerry Ryan line in 2010, because that 2010 was the year that she actually came back to conventions. She hasn't done for several years, hasn't done them. And I said, I'm like, who is it for? And they're like, oh yeah, that's a Jerry Ryan photo op line. But yeah, that tends to be the case. Did you do any others?
Michael Dorn, he'd been on my list for a couple of years. Armin Shimmerman, he's my favorite character. I've never had a picture with him. And then a few selfies in the vendors hall. Those I enjoy those so much more. You get so much better time with the actors.
Yeah.
I have to
But
admit that this year was a complete insanity in terms of that's where I kind of me and my sister, because we decided that except for a couple of photos, we decided that we're going to be just sharing everything. And do you want to do a photo with Gates and Ed? Let's do it. And so we kind of kind of broke the bank on it. It was amazing. We got some wonderful photos. I mean, including that big kahuna with
Yeah.
the TNG and beyond. I think that's what the original name for the photo op was, and then they had to change it for obvious reasons. But yeah, it was like counting two of us, I think it's like 12 or 13 people in the photo. It was huge. And somehow, because we all know it's like, actors, it's like herding cats. Somehow everybody's actually looking in the camera, you know. So I'm absolutely thrilled at how wonderful the photo ops came out to be. And you get to quickly say at least, how are you, great to see you again, or something like that, because as Ron said, it's quick. You have, it all has to be going very fast, because the lines are huge. And the downside of that, of course, is that I actually got to miss out parts of the panels that I really wanted to see. But
Yeah.
that what are
Yeah.
you gonna do?
I had to rush from Gates over to Prodigy.
Yeah.
And there was so many nerves involved. I'm like, oh my God, they better hurt. But yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, but I mean, I love the fact that this year we had a spectacular selection of group photos. So the duos, the
Yeah.
trios, and the actual groups. I don't think I don't remember which year previously, probably going back almost a decade ago, where we had that many. Because it was that we had another version of the Doctors, because now we have Jazz Bush, and I think Wilson wasn't, even though he was at the convention, he wasn't part of the photo op in 2019,
Oh,
but he was a part of photo op this time. And then they had that engineers thing, and then they had the
yeah.
directors, and on and on and on, and it was wonderful. So, like, for example, I had to get the aforementioned Gates and Ed photo, because now it becomes sort of a very nice bookend to a Gates and Will photo that I have. So it's like,
Yeah.
space mom with her space sons.
Oh,
It's
that's nice.
super sweet. Yeah, I'm somewhat jealous of folks who rebooked for next year's cruise, because they actually get the trio with the three of them.
Oh
Oh, that'd be
man.
fun.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that's
I
I'm gonna
will.
be skipping that one next year.
Oh, bummer. I will
Yeah.
say, like for a hot moment, there was a question of like, will this convention happen or not? Will the actors be able to go or not? And we all know that we have Michelle Hurd to thank for the
Yeah.
actors being able to be there, period. And I would like to kind of, so like, I know it's two-handed. I know that creation makes money from these photo ops. However, I think that having this giant assortment of photo ops helped put money into the actors' pockets. And all of those actors need it right now because they're not working. And I don't care who makes what money, because I know people are going to be out there making comments about it. Everybody needs the money right now. A lot of the actors that are better off are donating their own money to help feed and house other actors that are losing their home right now. So I am personally really grateful that they had so much opportunity to have that gateway to make some money.
Yeah, very much agreed.
I don't know if anyone sat in on the Michelle Hurd panel too. I was in the back of the theater getting autographs, but got to hear her talk. And it doesn't take long for you to realize she's on the negotiating team, and I would not want to be across the table from her negotiating. She is just, she's on fire. She knows her stuff, and she's so passionate about their cause.
I will take this moment to, without apology, quickly plug the latest Mission Log supplemental episode that is an interview with Michelle Hurd and with Bill Wolkoff, who is a writer. And so there are perspectives both from actor and writer about everything. And super important, like if you're not quite clued in, you don't know why this is important, or you just want to hear their passion, and I just go listen. And I know Michelle has been on a few different podcasts out there. I think the Trek Untold did a show with a bunch of people, but I highly recommend that everyone go and track down these podcasts and listen to what they have to say, and understand that these actors are not millionaires. These actors can't even afford health insurance.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no.
Get health insurance through the union, so a lot of them are going out without.
Yeah, you have to make $26,000, which Michelle didn't even make that much. Like, she could not afford health insurance. It's wild. The discrepancy, and we saw a lot of this between our group. I mean, we're a little bit stricter with moderation in our group, I'll be frank. But between our group and the Rio group, there were a lot of comments about, oh, these people make tons of money, and they don't. And regardless of the money that they do make, most of them live in places where it's extremely, I mean, everywhere right now is extremely hard. Like, it's so expensive. I live in South Florida. A 1-bedroom apartment is like $2,000 a month. Like, it is hard to live in America right now. And these actors are not out there banking millions of dollars. So they are fighting for rights that apply to everyone. We talked a little about the UPS strike in the episode with Bill Wolkoff, and how like that was so successful in giving rights to those workers. And everybody needs that. That's why you have teachers joining the strike. That's why you have youth joining the strike. It's a movement that is much bigger than actors or writers or Hollywood. And that's why people need to tune in and understand that this affects everyone in our country, and even outside of our country. Like, there are unions in other countries. Sorry, I'll get off my
Well, no, this was a huge part of this convention experience. So it's surprisingly enough, there were actually some percentage of people who were apparently unaware of this, and they were kind of taken aback by the fact that we had Q&A panels that pretty much never mentioned Star Trek. So here we are. I did want to pivot because I wanted to touch upon the fan events, because as we all know, this has kind of grown together with the convention and is very much a part of the STLV experience. When you go, is the expectation that there's something going to be going on, and every year it always does. So I mean, not to toot our own horn, we always have the newbies and solo travelers. That starts out a very nice icebreaker, which is basically it's a bar hangout, but everybody's welcome regardless whether it's your first appearance at a convention or you've been coming for goodness knows how many years. But I think it kind of has a nice start to it, and then we just send off people out into the wild to the landing party and then onwards to the convention. So this year we had pretty nice coverage. I mean, my evenings after con hours basically were very full. So did you get to do anything besides newbies? Both Heather and Ron.
I hosted the newbie. I have to give a shout out to my Mission Log family, which you are a part of, Marina, because
yes,
most of my Mission Log Discord family showed up. I kept talking about the newbie event for them because we had a lot of people coming for the first time. But that was at iBar, and so that was great. It was great to see friends again. That was my first event. I flew in kind of midday and got settled in, and I did not really come down until that event. So that was great. And then we ended up we didn't do the trivia. There was a little bit of time constraint with, Lambda Quadrant is there in the vendor's room on the floor. They've got time restrictions. And so they were very generous and brought gift bags. And so they kind of went around and just surprised random people with gift bags.
Oh, that is so sweet. Oh,
so yeah, it was lovely.
I was a slacker. I was in bed by like 7 o'clock Eastern or Pacific time most nights.
We had a
I
long
own
day, Ron.
yeah, it was a long day, and I own a coffee shop, so I'm used to being up early on East Coast time. So unfortunately, I did not make it to any fan events. One I was really looking forward to was the craft swap. And I think Heather and I happened to be on the same flight, so we sat with each other. And I think it was mid-flight that I
That
realized I
was
left all my crafts
awesome.
at home. They were sitting on my desk.
Yeah.
So I even missed
no.
out on that.
You know what? Don't feel bad, Ron, because I didn't make it either. And I need to touch base with Yesenia because for me, I have found out, like, I've been going to this convention. This was my 13th. I think Marina and I are
Yeah.
tied now.
Yep.
So not that it's a competition. We have been there with each other. I love that Marina is one of my oldest con friends. It's the best thing. But I had my little bags of rocks, Spock's rocks, whatever. And I was so excited. But what I was finding is that I would also wake up early in the morning because I live on the East Coast now, get up, go do stuff. And then by midday, I needed a break. Like, whether it was just the being overwhelmed by all the people, because this was by far the biggest thing that I've done since last year. Or just like needing a break from all the people, or just my body needing to rest. So between like 3 and then the evening events, that was my crash time. So the 5 o'clock was hard for me to make. And so I proposed to Yesenia, maybe me helping host an earlier, like 12 o'clock craft swap, so that it's one thing where it's like, I feel really bad because it's often the highlight of my convention. And I wound up sending my friend Heather on Saturday with my rocks to the craft swap. So at least I got a newbie there who could go and get stuff and experience it.
Yeah.
And she had a good time, but I was really bummed because it is a highlight and my poor body was not having any of it. So I might work with Yesenia next year to do one a little earlier in the day. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I
I'm
was even
usually
thinking my next con, I might try to put together an East Coast breakfast club where we get
Ooh.
together at like 5 a.m. Vegas time. Yes.
see. I'm on the East Coast. I'm in New Jersey. I have this weird thing that happens every time I travel west. I get I don't have a jet lag. I don't crash. I get extraordinarily long days with very little sleep. Mind you, I'm pretty sure that like this Vegas week, that's probably the longest I can actually manage this kind of activity, because then I come back home and that's when I crash. The jet lag hits
Yeah.
me. Usually takes me about 2-3 weeks to kind of come out of this state of hyperactivity. And I'm just generally all exhausted after having done it for a week. So in my case, it's just conflicts with other things. On average, I managed to make it to about 1 or 2 craft swaps. So because there was one happening every day. This year, I only went to the first one on Thursday, and it was probably the busiest I've ever seen. I'm almost positive that either Desi or Yaz actually mentioned in the group for craft swap that this was the busiest that we've ever had. The
Yeah.
the biggest number of people showed up, which is wonderful to see, because I mean this year's cruise craft swap was kind of mind blowing. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was like 100 people swapping things, like actual 100 people, meaning 100 people who brought something, and then there was of course a crowd of people just watching it, and it kind of felt very similar in Vegas. I don't know if we hit 100 people or not. I think Thursday I definitely saw somebody walking around with number 80 on their little sticker.
Wow.
That's how it's easiest to kind of like have like a little example of what you brought and have a number, and then you kind of walk around. If you
Yeah,
see
it's a
something you
new
like, you'll be like, I'm
system.
looking. Yeah, I'm looking for number 34, and then basically try to see if the person is interested in swapping. It's a lot of fun, and people come up with the most amazing things. I mean, somebody bought miniature bottles of Tabasco sauce and put little labels on top saying Ketracel White. Somebody 3D printed self-sealing stem bolts with a little delta on the side.
Oh my God,
Somebody
Lean,
had,
That's awesome.
Lean had paper dolls.
Yeah, there
Lean,
were
like
paper dolls.
Lean is an
There were
amazing artist and had paper dolls, and I am so sad I don't have one. Like they are so cool. I am blown away by the talent in our community.
it's extraordinary, like little crochet things, little stickers, I don't know, wristbands and pins, you name it, like whatever people can come up with, it was all there. And it was just, it's a fun thing to just kind of stop by and experience. And you don't have to be crafty. I'm not a crafty
Nope.
person. I usually come up with something, and then I have somebody else print, like either print,
Yep.
Print pins or wristbands for me.
I
Um,
literally brought rocks.
yeah,
Like I have a
there you
rock
go.
store.
Yeah.
I brought rocks. Like I put them in a bag. Like
But
it's
so it's very much a fixture. It's fantastic to see that, that's another thing that's kind of evolving and growing. There
yeah.
were other things with the usual sort of, I know Seventh Rule Podcast had a meetup, which was, a nice little thing. People get together, they kind of celebrated various August birthdays that were happening roughly within
Mhm.
like a couple of weeks of that particular date. Well, technically it's not fan organized event, but it sort of not became a thing. Cool Waters Company does
Yep.
a charity event on Thursday night, and it was another success. Doug Jones was a special guest, so all monies that were gathered from a raffle and an auction went to a charity of his choice. And that's a fun thing. It's actually not, you don't even have to, like, it's not a ticketed event. People can just show up. They do
Right.
recommend reserving tables, but there's enough room and you can just kind of go up. And yes, it is crowded, so those people who have issues with standing like in a packed bar, basically, it's probably not particularly pleasant. But that's another fun event. This is, I think, third year in a row that they've done it now, and I'm
Mhm.
sure it's probably gonna go on because it's a great success every year. And then of course, let's see, Fan Geeks,
Yep.
Millennium Fandom Bar, which was super exciting. That I was very curious. I've never been there before. That was fun. I heard something about supposedly the owner is looking for a place that would be a bit more um conducive to having like large events,
Yes.
so you wouldn't have as much, like, because the sound was very overwhelming. The place is not
Yes.
really acoustically properly insulated, so you have a lot of bouncing sound, and that was a bit too much. But the same thing that they did, yeah, they gave away a lot of pins. That was so much fun to see. And then of course, Amy and Larry hosted a STEM Stars party
Mhm.
in the suite. And just in general, like, there are other events. There was a couple of private parties that I went to. Of course, there are like Patreon parties. There's stuff happening, multiple somethings happening every day of the convention, which is extraordinary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
it's amazing how
Ron,
much.
you have sorry, I just wanted to say, Ron, you
Okay.
have next year you come, you like, I don't know, maybe sleep during the day, but then you're missing a convention. But you gotta join in. It's so much fun. I'm sorry
Yeah,
to interrupt you,
it's
Jesse.
no, it's I was just I'm amazed over the years, like how much those fan events have grown. I mean, it's really awesome, and one of the things that made those longer event, you know, 4 to 5 and whatever was like we filled in the time ourselves, just
Yeah.
doing some of our
Yeah.
own stuff.
Well,
But I
and it
also,
was
yeah,
go
Well,
ahead,
the
Jesse.
the
Sorry.
whole thing with the
also it's
craft swap,
also
if I remember, like,
no, I was just saying, the other thing is though, like over the years, so you guys have been going for a while and I've been going for a while, and I'll just say that the first time I went to STLV was like my 40th birthday present to myself. And let's just say what I could do at 40, I can't do now. So
Yeah.
I'm not an up all night person anymore.
Yeah.
no, the
Sorry.
conflicts are unfortunate, is because there are multiple things. So I think
Mhm.
I ended up Thursday was incredibly packed. Surprisingly, I had invites from 4 different parties, and you kind of have to gauge, obviously it'd be great to do something for charity. At the same time, my friends are hanging out at the Venetian and doing something at an Italian place, and on and on and on. But
Yeah.
again, it's all thanks to having this convention. It all started here. It kind of grew out of it. I started saying earlier, if I remember correctly, craft swap, at least the idea of a craft swap, actually was born out of like people literally dropping off things that they made at a small table, like right next to the
Yeah.
rotunda, I think.
Yeah.
And it just, right, Heather, you had like soaps or something the one year,
Yeah. I
and,
made soap.
yeah, people
Yeah.
would be like, just free, just pick it up, somebody just made it, yeah, and then out of that, here's an idea, why don't we have a swap?
You know what fascinates me? So I was really excited to learn that the craft swap idea like jumped over to the cruise as well. And then I've recently again moved back to South Florida. I have a love for Disney, so I live 2.5 hours away. I have found that even in the Disney groups, they do these things called pixie dusting, which is basically like bringing your own little crafts, and then they give stuff to random people or to the cast members who work at Disney. And again, it's just, in that case, it's often kind of just giving things away. But like even at Taylor Swift concerts, they trade bracelets. My friend Susie brought me a couple bracelets that they were trading or they were just giving away to friends and for craft swap. I know somebody made some SAG-AFTRA strike bracelets that I think even Jerry Ryan got her hands on. But it's so nice to see these little like activities of goodwill spread throughout different fan communities. It's something that I cherish here within the Star Trek community, but the fact that I see that kind of stuff like at Disney, it's just right now we really need positive good things to happen in the world. And it's really inspiring to see. I have
I love it. I absolutely love it. Just I missed it. I'll just say it. I avoided seeing a lot because I was like, oh, I want to be there.
It's well, and like I'm sad that I didn't get to go. Like I was lucky that Heather gave me a few things that she picked up from the craft swap, like a little bracelet and a keychain holder and a slap bracelet, and a little 3D printed Gorn head. So like I still got some things, but I was sad that I missed the event. And ultimately, I know the one piece of advice that we always give out is like you cannot make everything. You can't do everything. And
Yeah.
I think most of us are now in similar age range. And, I started going to this 13 years ago. So I was in my late 20s and now I'm in my 40s. And like Jesse said, I don't stay up drinking until 4 a.m. I cannot do that. And also, what I do at the convention has changed. Like, if I have to be on the morning show on the Roddenberry stage, I can't stay up until 3 a.m. drinking. Or I've got a panel here or a fan event. Like, I want to be my best self. So that means trying to get rest when I can.
I'm
was
actually
interesting.
curious if sorry to interrupt. I'm actually curious to see, like, I wish we could do like some kind of a poll, like, those people who were going, say, a decade ago, and yeah, we had these massive gatherings at Masquerade with, yeah, occasionally even Star Trek cocktails involved from Quarks. Somebody would share, the recipes with the staff at Masquerade Bar, and they would make them, pattern buffers and what have you. How many people are still actually, I mean, we still have quite a sizable crowd gathering, but I found, like, personally, that even if I do stop by for some sort of get together, I either have like, I don't know, rum and coke maybe at most, or maybe a cider or something like that, something light, or even just stand there with a glass of, soda or water.
Yep.
And because somehow it's just like, yeah, I still have a whole lot of activity going on. I mean, I literally sound like Kathleen Turner after the week is done because my voice is just gone from all the talking. But so it's that thing is still there, but the drinking part kind of diminished. And I know a lot of folks are going, and it's part of the Vegas experience. Absolutely, totally cool. I'm glad to see folks enjoying themselves. But I'm curious, specifically the convention crowd, those who did this, 12, 15 years ago. Is it still on the same level, or has it gone down like it did for me?
Even in the past couple of years, I think it was 2019, there was a group of us that went in and purchased a case of the 10 Forward vodka, and we picked up our bottles from whoever was coordinating it in the hotel, and sure enough, drank an entire bottle. Flash forward 4 years later, I bought a bottle of vodka this year, had exactly one drink from it, and that was it. Yeah, it's definitely, it's hard to keep going as we all start to age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
But I
okay
was
if that is your experience. Like The one thing that I know is that there are still new, younger fans coming in, and if that is what you want to do, go do that and go have fun. But I think that it does kind of come back to the fact that I know within our group, like we've always struggled because it's downright impossible to find any space anywhere at any of these Vegas casinos that isn't a bar to socialize with. And it is
Yeah.
difficult, especially for people who don't drink, who may be sober, who have difficulty being in that space, being around that area. But I will reiterate what you said, Marina. Most nights, like I was at Masquerade just drinking water.
Yeah. Well, I was actually about to actually jump in and say that because it came up. There was at least two people who brought it up in the group saying that they're coming in solo. It's their first event or maybe second, and they're kind of stressing out of, being in this social pressure situation of, they want to go and hang out and talk track, but they either don't like drinking, don't want drinking, whatever. And so yeah, the piece of advice, if unless there are health or otherwise some kind of indication to drinking, you don't have to. A lot of people are probably not drinking or drinking something light or just generally no, that the whole idea is actually people getting together and socializing, and for the most part,
Yeah.
yeah, like majority of the conversations are about Star Trek. You don't have to be drinking. Just stand around, grab a glass of water. You're fine.
Yeah. That's the
Yeah,
one thing I
so
like about Masquerade is that when it does spill out, and it did spill out pretty much every night, like
yeah,
there's the
yeah,
main bar area and then there's the casino floor. And like you're still exposed to smoke because people can smoke in the casino, but you're not like directly there amongst all the people. And listen, I no longer enjoy being in a crowd full of drunk people. I'll be honest. So if I find myself in that situation, and I didn't this year, but I wasn't at the bar until 2 a.m. But if I find
yeah,
myself in that situation, I just do my best to remove myself immediately, like take note, get away. And, people are going to do what they're going to do. But it's so important to always be responsible, take care of yourself, drink a lot of water, like one glass of water for every drink you have, and have a buddy and all that kind of stuff. But it's definitely interesting how our experiences have changed over time.
Yeah, they definitely have for me because you guys know, like, dusk till dawn for me.
Yeah.
And the last time, like, I was like in bed by like midnight, I would say. I did not have one single 4 a.m. Like wake up time, and I was just exhausted. Like when I got home, I needed to take 2 days off work. So
Yeah, when
then
I
it,
got home I got sick.
yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember.
Something to bring up. So those folks who are listening who are, newer attendees, this whole thing with the fan organized events, that always brings up a question. Well, how on earth do I know about this? And it always reiterated, join up the two groups that have probably at this point probably the largest concentration of veterans, if you will, of this particular convention. Ours, the Star Trek Convention Experiences group, and of course our sister group USS Rio, because every year we will have a thread in the Star Trek Experiences group. Basically, you can just drop in if you know about a fan organized event that's open to anyone, unless it's a private party, of course. You can just drop in the information there, and we'll always have the listing for the landing party and for the various dinners and for the, we actually trade. I try to usually cross post because USS Rio they just have like the actual events created in the group. They don't do a thread. But there are the same things. This year was what, seventh or eighth strip run now, and Ellie Ingman put together the usual welcome
There
dinner
was
that she does. Yeah,
charades and I
the
think a
charades
breakfast.
and the Walmart runs for those folks
Mhm.
who need to get to, it's kind of, some of this stuff both fun and practical mixed together. So all of this stuff it became a thing. It's now kind of covered as part of the usual group activities. So yeah, join the groups, and that way it's probably the easiest way to track it. There were two people that I met at the newbies event this year, and we kind of got talking about this. I think they either somebody told them, oh, there is this thing happening for the new fans, you might want to stop by, an icebreaker, the whole thing. So they didn't know about the listing in the group, and it kind of became, out of the conversation, I said, well, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening, and most of these things are available for just, you just show up. You don't have to necessarily buy a ticket or sign up for something. And one person I could see that she was somewhat getting overwhelmed, because I just kept mentioning all these names, and of course, you come when it's a new convention, all these new people, all these names, it's kind of hard. The second person thought this was like the most amazing thing, and he said, hold on, and he literally picked up a napkin and started writing down all the little things that I'm like, yeah, if you stop by the Fansets table at 11 o'clock on Friday morning, you can get a spot to go to the Fangeeks party the same night, and the whole bit. So that's a bit too much when like it all drops at you when you're already at the convention. It might be more helpful if you have some sort of preparation beforehand, where you're kind of aware that, oh, these things are happening, can I fit them into my schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's so important to, and I mean, not everyone is on Facebook, which is difficult.
Yes.
Because that is where we are, and that is where both of the groups exist. But Creation was very kind in referencing fan-run events in an email, and making it clear that they cannot endorse those events, and so we're never going to appear in the program. It's always going to be a word of mouth thing. So like, you can join groups. There's no requirement to participate in groups. You can just join it and keep an eye on things and say, okay, this is what's going on here and there. The only reason that my mission log friends knew about the newbie and solo traveler event is because I was talking about it as we prepared for STLV. And I was grateful for that resource because I got to tell them about the other events. I got to tell them about the group. So much of it is word of mouth. And it is, even for me, it's overwhelming. Like, it's intimidating. There's a lot. So I think the more that we talk about these things and meet new fans when we're at the conventions, the better. And people will find out that way and hopefully make those connections. And you don't have to go your first year, but if you decide to come back, well, then now you know.
Yeah.
And about there, so we have like what, 6,230 members right now in that group. I can guarantee you that not everybody.
We can fill the main theater.
Yeah.
So to join and lurk is just fine. I think the only thing we look at is if you join and then start posting your Etsy store, we may have a problem with that. But
we are a little bit more strict about who we let into our group. And all you have to do is answer the questions. That's the biggest thing. Answer the questions that we ask.
Just answer the damn questions.
Yeah, that way we know that you are not spam or something like that. Our group also hosts the buy sell ticket group. And we've been very clear about, like, we're not liable for what happens in that group. However, we do take it seriously. And so we do vet our members as best as we can. We're always open to hearing feedback. If you have a bad experience, we'll always try to work with you and find solutions. But the way that we prevent having spam accounts and impersonation and everything else is by having those questions and requiring people to answer them.
And that buy sell group has been great because we've only had over the years like one bad experience I can remember, and it got resolved, in a way that everybody got what they needed, and
yeah.
So
Ron what were you?
Well, I was gonna say, it's, I think too, between fan events and the groups and everything too, so much of it is just talking to the people at the convention. I said I was in line quite a bit, and through that I had several people that I told about the buy sell group that literally joined, and I approved them as we were standing in line. We had one actual transaction happen right there in real time. Events, just talk to people. So much of this convention is networking, and it's super awkward for some people to go out there and just talk to a total stranger in line. But we all have Star Trek in common. We all have a favorite episode, a favorite character. It's the easiest place to start talking to strangers and make some great friends.
Yeah, here.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the time, guys. I know we've been about
Yep.
an hour. So
Yeah.
Another
check.
2 hours
Yeah.
shore leave.
We did cover, I think, like most things that definitely stood out. I mean, out of everything else, something that was at the back of my mind. Oh, when we were speaking about the photo ops, I did want to mention that I found it to be a welcome change, to be honest. We now have 2 photo areas. I
Yeah.
know that it was confusing because, there's technically, there's literally a sign saying like photo 1, photo 2, and then the actual name of the room somewhere, part of the actual Rio signage, like Miranda 5, Miranda 1, whatever the names were. I know people found it confusing, and I wish there was a better way of doing this because all the information was in the app, and you had to actually click on photo op, and it would say, oh, it's going to be Miranda 5. I know several folks got kind of lost because they had like completely different sides of the corridor where the entrances were. So hopefully this will kind of become more comfortable next time we have the experience. But overall, I thought this was great because photo ops felt faster in the sense of not necessarily like the line going faster. That was more or less the usual modus operandi. But you had several photo ops happening like one after another. And I'm assuming because there were 2 photo booths running, so to speak, presumably Chris and his outfit brought extra printers, perhaps. The photos were actually coming out faster. Like instead of the
Much
usual,
faster.
Yeah.
like maybe hour and a half, you have maybe, I don't know, maybe less than half an hour. Like I got one photo within 15 minutes. So that was a nice experience.
And the digital photo ops came through really quickly. I had them
Fast,
within
yeah.
like a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was definitely an improvement, and I hope that goes on. And I mean, unless Chris actually upgrades to the instant print like some of the other photo op companies, I don't think I think this worked out pretty well. I like the background.
Yes,
Did
purple,
you
more
noticed
purple.
purple? Yeah, that was a nice change. Like I appreciate the blue because cooler colors tend to look better. Not the red. I'm
No,
glad the
no
red
more
is
red.
so fast. But yeah, that was exciting. Purple. Just trying to rack my brain if there was anything else I wanted to point out because 4 days there was a lot going on.
There was a lot. I will I'll segue really quickly and give you time to think because I did want to bring up a couple of things that I know people have taken issue with, and I encourage that if you had, I say complaints, and I want to emphasize that if you had complaints about this year's convention, it's important to address your concerns. It's also important to do so in a
Constructive
a constructive and effective way that won't automatically get your concerns dismissed. And in Star Trek Convention Experiences, we have a pinned announcement that has the customer service email, that has Creation had asked for feedback specific about the Rio property because it's changing management and everything. So there is a specific email for that. But between the 2 of those, I just encourage, I know that there was, and we don't need to have the discussion here, but there were concerns about the art, and it was confirmed that the art was AI generated, which I'm not an artist, so I was oblivious. I had no idea. I walked around the halls thinking, wow, this art is really cool. There are lots of women featured. There are lots of people of color featured. And then it was pointed out to me, oh, well, the kanji in the, Asian inspired picture with the guy who kind of looks like Sulu, it doesn't make any sense. Like it's just gibberish. And so that has come up. And I know for me, I really prefer to support my friends who are artists. And so when it came to like purchasing, like I would have loved to have a shirt that said STLV on it, but I didn't want to buy that knowing that it was AI generated art. There are concerns about how that art is made, how that art is sourced, and whether or not it is ethical. And so I encourage people to just go out and learn and educate. There's a post in our group about it, but if you had concerns about it, I think you should voice those concerns, but please do so in a constructive way. Like, don't be a jerk, because that will not work in any favor. And then I
Be
think,
a professional.
what?
I said be a professional and provide constructive feedback with
Yeah,
maybe or my thing is like, just don't tell them this was a problem. You need to tell them why you think it was a problem, and maybe say, what if it kind of just like you're helping them and not as much complaining, because those get listened to a lot more. And over the years,
yeah.
we've seen that creation has taken action with our feedback.
Yeah, and I was really impressed. One of my friends who uses a wheelchair had major issues accessing the ADA bathrooms because there were cosplayers in those bathrooms. And look, I understand that people want to change in and out of costumes. Those are the more spacious stalls to change in. But when my friend can't use the bathroom, that is a problem. And look, creation cannot control a public bathroom space. But a solution for that is to say, hey, is there a way that you can perhaps provide like some cosplay changing stalls? And so I have drafted an email where I address that concern. And I do know that creation was very responsive to my friend and said, reach back out about a month before the convention and let's talk about what we can do. But I want to add a voice to that. I want to add my support and add the fact that it's so easy to just make like a couple little stalls that we can put by what used to be Garrick's tailor shop, which is now just like the costume corner. So that people can go and change, and also be changing in a place that is more sanitary, because I don't know, like it's not the most cleanly thing to have to change your cosplay in a bathroom. So there's a problem and there's a solution. And when you can provide a solution, that is usually much more positively receptive and will end up with a change than just being upset about things. So that is my recommendation. And again, we have those emails pinned in the group in the announcements so that you can contact specifically about the event itself or about the Rio. And I gave feedback about the Rio. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen there. But I think we all want to make this convention a better space for everybody. And I know that creation does consider our feedback and has made changes over the years. So I just encourage everyone to voice their opinions, but do so in a kind and gracious way.
I think the old adage, you get more flies with honey. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
Definitely
basically.
true.
Yeah.
All right, so Marina, do we want to start the sad part where I always
All
have
right,
to say,
I think
yeah.
I was gonna say that we basically covered most of the things I think that kind of really stuck out. This was overall a wonderful event. It was absolutely brilliant to see everyone, and kudos to all the actors who had to navigate the rather precarious situation of when you're trying to be there for the fans, but you're limited by the situation. So very much looking forward to next year. And I think it's going to be exciting. I am glad that we're still at Rio because there were talks about moving elsewhere, and I still think that, as we said, it's our dump. Hopefully, it's going to be far less dumpy next year. It's I can't wait to see everyone again. It's just that one what feels like very, very brief moment of amazing experience.
Yeah.
So where can folks find you online? Let's start with Ron.
That's a good question. I don't, I'm actually just for a minute going to rewind to, we were talking about the social media aspect. I remember my first couple of conventions, Twitter was huge. And X now is not such a big thing. I am on Threads. Best way to find me there, I believe, is through probably my Instagram. I think they link to it. So my Instagram is Trekker Ron. I'm also on the podcast, oh my gosh, my brain is just froze. The Con Pod through the Trek Geeks, where we're talking about Star Trek conventions, and of course in the Star Trek Convention Experiences Facebook group.
All right,
Yeah.
Heather, where can people find you?
So same kind of thing. I mean, I'm in the Star Trek Convention Experiences group, and on Facebook that way. And I think otherwise, the main place that you can find me is probably on the Mission Log Patreon Discord. So you have to pay $1. I'm sorry. But it's, listen, that space for me has become like my go-to safe space for talking about Star Trek, because the platform formerly known as Twitter is a hell space, and it's so negative. I do have an account there, but I don't love it. What I find is that on the Mission Log Discord, we can have discussions about things that we disagree with without tearing each other down, tearing each other apart. And I have found a community there that I really cherish. So that's where I tend to talk about Star Trek. But yeah, I'm out there, but I would say in the group and on that Mission Log, I think it's patreon.com/Mission Log is our Patreon page.
Thank
All
you,
right,
thank you.
Jesse, where can people find you?
I am mostly on Facebook. So if you find me on Facebook, you'll know where to find me on. I'm on Instagram. I have X. I can't say I use it, but I am always around. And then just wanted to tell you guys, I am so looking forward to seeing everyone at this convention. The one when we were at Bally's, I had to leave after a day due to a dog emergency.
I remember that. I was so bummed.
And then last year was not a good time for me, but things are looking up and I am excited. And for those of you listening who will be on the cruise, I will be there this year as well. So looking forward to seeing you. Yeah, just find me online. I admin our group, obviously, and then I admin the cruise groups too.
Yeah. Same deal. I mean, one of the admins of Star Trek Convention Experiences group. So primarily, I am also mostly on Facebook, like 75% of the time. I do have accounts, Mastodon and Blue Sky and Threads, because that all kind of came automatically in the last several months as situation with Twitter deteriorated. Yeah, I tend to use the same handle, Dracorex, but it's easiest to search for me by my name. I mean, it's unusual enough, so I should pop up, especially if we have mutuals somewhere out there in the in the cloud void. And of course, you can find Shoreleaf also on Facebook under a very, very long name, and at Shoreleaf on X. And I think that's it. Thank you everyone for joining us. Ron, Heather, thank you so much for joining the discussion. This was fun.
Yeah,
congratulations on 91 episodes of Shore Leave. We're 9 away from 100. So I don't know what y'all are going to do or when you'll get there, but big party.
Well, for us, it might be a couple years, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, STLV 60, who knows?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually, if we go at the rate that we're going right now, it's probably going to happen for the 60th.
Hey, that's why they love us, because we're not overwhelming. We just come in when our stuff happens. I mean, I love what we do because we totally focus on our family, and this is what it is. So I'm very happy with it. But Marina and I will chat and see what we can do to spice things up now that I'm going to be selfish just because now I'm going. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I'll be asking lots of pointed questions. No, it's a schedule. I unfortunately cannot do Thursday to Thursday, so no cruise for me next year. Anyway, again, thank you very much to our listeners. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Heather. And we'll see you all at whatever next Star Trek adventure we're all gonna have.
Yes,
Yep.
live logs and
Yeah.
prosper, save Star Trek Prodigy.
Yes.
Live long and
Yes,
prosper,
100%.
everybody.
Keep tracking, everyone.